The morning my father died began like any other, quiet, ordinary, painfully normal. Sunlight slipped through the kitchen curtains while I poured tea into 2 cups out of habit, one for me, one for him. Even though he had been in the hospital for 3 weeks, my hands still moved as if he might shuffle into the room any second, complaining about the weather or the news. The phone rang before I could take my first sip. Hospitals have a certain tone when they call early in the morning, soft, careful, and already heavy with sadness. I knew before the nurse finished her sentence. My father had passed away peacefully during the night. The words settled into my chest like cold stones. I called my daughter Aina next. She was 22, living across town while finishing university. She and my father had always been close. He used to wait for her every Sunday with a plate of her favorite sweets and stories from his youth. When she answered, her voice was sleepy but warm. "Aina," I said quietly, "Grandpa, he's gone." There was silence, then a sharp intake of breath, then crying so deep it felt like it was tearing through the phone. "I'll come," she said between sobs. "I'm coming right now." The funeral. The funeral passed in a blur of condolences and whispered prayers. Relatives I hadn't seen in years filled the house. People talked about my father's kindness, his patience, his laughter. But Aina barely spoke to me. She stood near the door most of the day, arms crossed, eyes red but distant. Whenever I tried to approach her, she turned away. I told myself grief does strange things to people. Everyone mourns differently. It wasn't until the evening, after the last guests had left, that everything broke. We were alone in the living room. My father's favorite chair sat empty, the cushion still pressed down from years of use. I was gathering teacups when Aina suddenly stood up. Her face was tight with anger. "You didn't care about him," she said. The words hit me like a slap. "What?" I whispered. "You didn't care," she repeated, her voice rising. "Grandpa passed away because you didn't care enough to be there." I stared at her, confused and hurt. "Aina, I was at the hospital almost every day." "Almost every day," she snapped. "Not every day. I went last week and he was alone. He asked me where you were." My chest tightened. I had work that day, I called. "That's not the same," she shouted. "He needed you and you weren't there." Her words sliced through my grief, turning it into something raw and jagged. "You think I didn't love my own father?" I asked softly. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I think you were too busy with your life to notice he was slipping away." Before I could respond, she grabbed her bag and stormed out, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. The silence. Days passed without a message from her. The house felt emptier than ever. My father's slippers still sat by the door. His glasses rested on the table beside his chair. Every corner of the home whispered his absence. But Aina's accusation echoed even louder. Did I fail him? I replayed every missed call, every late visit, every moment I chose work or errands instead of sitting by his bedside. Guilt crawled into my thoughts at night, refusing to let me sleep. On the 7th day after the funeral, I began sorting through my father's belongings. It felt necessary, like a way to stay close to him a little longer. His room smelled faintly of sandalwood and old books. I opened drawers slowly, folding his clothes, touching objects that held decades of memories. That's when I found the envelope. The letter. It was tucked inside a worn copy of his favorite novel. My name was written on the front in his careful handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a letter dated 2 months before his death. "My dear child, if you are reading this, it means I am gone. Do not cry too much. I have lived a long and beautiful life." I paused, already struggling to breathe. "I know you worry that you haven't done enough for me, but you have given me more than I ever hoped for, a home filled with love, respect, and dignity. I see how hard you work every day. I see how tired you are when you come to visit, yet you still sit beside me and listen to my stories." Tears blurred the ink. "Please do not blame yourself for the days you cannot come. I understand more than you think. What matters is not how often you visit, but the love you carry in your heart." My chest tightened as I continued reading. "I also worry about Aina. She loves deeply and feels everything strongly. If she becomes angry after I am gone, please be patient with her. Grief can turn love into sharp words." I covered my mouth to stop a sob. "Tell her that I was proud of both of you, and tell her that the greatest gift you ever gave me was your presence, not perfection." The letter ended with a simple line. Live without regret, I have never once felt unloved by you. The truth. I read the letter 3 times before I could stand. The guilt that had wrapped around my chest began to loosen, replaced by a bittersweet warmth. My father had known me better than anyone. Even in his final months, he had tried to protect me from pain. I knew I had to show the letter to Aina. But she wasn't answering my calls. So I went to her apartment. She opened the door slowly, her eyes tired and swollen. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I found something, I said gently, from Grandpa. Her expression shifted, anger softening into curiosity. She stepped aside to let me in. We sat at a small kitchen table. I slid the letter toward her without a word. She read silently, her face changing with every line. Her hands began to shake. By the time she reached the end, tears were falling onto the paper. He wrote this, she whispered. I nodded. Her shoulders collapsed as she started to cry, deep, heavy sobs that seemed to carry days of guilt and anger. I'm so sorry, she said between breaths. I was so angry. I thought he felt abandoned. I thought you didn't care enough. I didn't know what to do with how much it hurt. I reached across the table and held her hand. I was hurting too, I said softly, and when you said those things, it broke me. She squeezed my hand tighter. I didn't mean to blame you. I needed someone to blame. It was easier than accepting he was gone. Healing. We talked for hours that day, about Grandpa's jokes, his stubborn habits, the way he used to sneak extra dessert when no one was looking. For the first time since his death, we laughed together. Grief didn't disappear, but it changed shape. It became something shared instead of something that separated us. Before I left, Aina folded the letter carefully and handed it back to me. No, I said gently, it belongs to both of us. She shook her head. Keep it, but can we make a copy? So we did. Moving forward. Weeks later, we visited my father's grave together. Aina brought flowers. I brought tea in a small thermos, 2 cups just like before. We sat quietly, the breeze rustling through the trees. I used to think love meant always being there, she said softly, but maybe it just means showing up as best as you can. I smiled faintly. That's what he believed. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and for the first time since the funeral, I felt peace. Grief had tested us, twisted our words, and almost broken our bond. But a simple letter, written with love and understanding, had brought us back to each other. And as we sat there together, I realized something my father had known all along. Love is not measured by perfect moments or endless presence. It lives in the quiet memories, the shared tears, and the courage to forgive, even when grief tries to turn us against each other.